there's three things that happened that told me we were going to be, a company that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And that all happened three things happened. First is, I used to chase municipalities, trying to convince them to put an amphitheater in, convince them that this was going to be a tide that was going to rise all of the boats, convince them that the economic impact was going to be billions of dollars to their economy. Most of the time they hung up on me. So difficult to do.
Yeah.
But when the Ford Amphitheater happened, and mayors and city council and all sorts of economic development people from around the United States sat and watched a show, and then they went and talked to businesses in the area, and they did. They spent tons and tons of time doing that. All of a sudden, the phone started ringing the other way.
Interesting.
And so today, we have more municipalities than we could ever build in.
The very latest on economic development, workforce, and industry sector news in Southern Colorado. Here is Business Digest Weekly with our host, Dirk Hobbs.
Good Friday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Business Digest Weekly. I am your host, Dirk Hobbs. Glad you're with us here on this March 28th, 2025. We are well on our way out of Q1 here in 2025 in Southern Colorado. Glad you're with us. You're only 2 short hours away from happy hour, so hang in there. After this conversation, you'll be ready for a toddy down at Bourbon Brothers. What do you think?
Yeah, it works.
That works. Everybody come on and put it on Dirk's tab. That voice is JW Roth, a very familiar face and voice here in Southern Colorado, and we're going to get a front row seat to all the action-packed adventures they're having over at Venu. It's VENU. And, of course, the Ford Amphitheater on the north side of town. This has been an absolute privilege and a hoot to watch this thing come out of the ground. JW Roth, thanks for being with us, my friend.
Appreciate you having me.
Hey, we're going to have some fun here. We're going to get to, for the 5 people out there that don't know you, we're going to get to know you a little bit. I know you're a Colorado guy through and through.
I am.
This is home.
This is home.
And, man, you've realized some pretty impressive dreams, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you saying it.
Yep. So, welcome to the show. I'm going to orient our listeners here to a few things, and we'll get to our conversation.
Sounds great.
Got a lot going on here in Southern Colorado. We got a big election coming up for city council here in Colorado Springs. I encourage you to read your ballots very, very carefully. There's a lot of good candidates on the ballot, and there's a lot of folks out there who are just kind of throwing their name in the hat. And we are at a place in our evolution here in Southern Colorado, ladies and gentlemen, where we really need to take serious people and put them into these serious positions. So just all the districts are on the table pretty much, and I encourage you, your ballots dropped on the 7th of March, so you should have them. And if you don't, you need to call the city administrator's office and make sure that you get that resolved. But you do need to vote. And we've got some great people out there in all the districts. I want to encourage you to read up and down the ballot and take a close look at who you want representing you here in City Council in Colorado Springs. As for the rest of Southeast Colorado, man, we are always chugging along here. Our industry sectors are strong. We are growing in a multitude of fields here. And, even some of the DOGE stuff is hitting us here closer to home as the Air Force Academy has gone through some changes, and a lot of the DoD contractors are a little puckered up right now. But things are going to smooth out here as we start to onshore a lot of this chip manufacturing and some other things that are happening around the world to bring America back to a strong posture. So hopefully you are enjoying the prosperity components that are coming into play and into focus here. We here in Colorado Springs, we're a largely an advanced manufacturing, aerospace and defense, and of course, cybersecurity. Those are some of our strong components, but we also have some other industries that are emerging. One of those is the entertainment sector. This has been an entertainment desert for a very long time and is no longer. And that is in large part to credit with the gentleman across the board from me, JW Roth, who I've had the privilege of knowing for several years now, sir. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
All right. Well, let's talk.
And I've enjoyed our friendship.
Likewise. Yep. Thank you very much. Well, let's talk about you again for those few people that don't know your story. You hail from Colorado.
I am born and raised here, 5th generation.
Okay. So you got pioneer tags, man.
Yeah. I don't have them on my car. I should.
But you guys have been here for 5 generations.
Yeah, 5 generations.
Okay.
My both sides of my family, but my mom's side of the family are over in the Alamosa area as farmers. And then my dad's side of the family are here in Denver.
Very good.
Yep.
Very good. Now, you were a police officer at one point?
I was. So I'd make my bills work and everything else when I was coming out of school. And you're starting your business, and at the end of the day, you still have to make things work. So
right. Yeah.
I applied to some different places where I could work at night while I ran my business during the day. And the Denver Police Department, whether they regret it or not, hired me, and I went on and I spent 3 years in a robbery car out of Northeast Denver.
Very good. Now, what was the business you were running during the daytime? During that time?
So I've been in the agricultural space most of my life. So I was working at a place called Inverness Foods, and I worked as a wholesale food guy until I eventually got started in my own food business, and then ultimately over the years that became Roth Premium Foods, which is here in Colorado Springs.
That's right. And your son Mitch is running that?
Mitchell runs Roth Premium. Yep.
How's he doing?
He's doing great. Roth Premium has exploded over the last probably 5 or 6 years to where it is today. And a lot of times I get credit for stuff I don't actually do. He's been the guy that's actually built the majority of these new product lines, and Whole30 has just become the world's #1 health and wellness brand, and he's done an awesome job of that. It's surpassed Atkins, and it's just really exploded.
No kidding.
It's Roth's #1 brand.
Very good. Yeah. Well, congratulations to Mitchell and team, and I'm sure you're a proud father.
Yeah,
there.
I am.
Absolutely.
Proud shareholder.
Yeah, well, shareholder. Yeah, it's a good day's work, right? Well, Venu started out as what? Notes at one point?
Yep, started out as Notes Live.
Yep.
I sat down with a group when we started to go down the road of taking this thing public, and everybody's trying to figure out a symbol. And so when you trade on the New York Stock Exchange or on the NASDAQ, one of the first things you go through is trying to figure out the sort of how your business is going to be recognized, what category your business is going to be in, and then ultimately what your symbol is going to be. So as we started to look at various symbols, the symbol that stuck out the most to us was Venu, VENU, spelled incorrectly, which is sort of par for the course for me, with the lack of education that I have. So to spell it VENU is a good thing.
It's phonetically correct.
It's phonetically correct, exactly right. So then we started thinking, a lot of companies that have been sort of successful in their public debut had the same name or close to same name. Notes didn't really fit with Venu, and so we went through the process of changing our name from Notes Live to Venu when we started down that road.
Oh, very good. Well, a music guy through and through, right?
Yep,
so,
from day one.
And you tell a story around the community. I don't know how many people outside the community have heard it, but where you were sneaking into concerts once upon a time. I mean, this has always been in your DNA.
Yeah. From day one. I didn't grow up in a wealthy family. I grew up in a family that we ranched and just a regular family. And so at the end of the day, going to concerts a lot of times for me required climbing the fence. Unless I had a date. So, and then we were sitting in the lawn. But yeah, at the end of the day, I've been going to shows for probably went to my first show in the early to mid 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just, do you remember the show?
Well, the first one that I can actually get my arms around and remember was up at Folsom Field. REO opened for Journey.
No kidding.
And I think that was 1977, 1978,
so
right in
Steve
there.
Perry Journey.
Yeah, that was the early Journey. Right out of the gate Journey. That was the first one that I can remember going to there. And then the next show I saw was again late 70s. Would have been the Eagles.
Wow.
At Red Rocks.
No kidding.
Yeah.
All right. So this thing comes online. I mean, you started with Bourbon Brothers. I think it was Southern Comfort when you finally got a hold of it.
Yeah, what happened was I made some investments along I-25 there at Northgate, buying some of the real estate that Gary Erickson was developing there.
Very good. Yep.
And the way the whole process started is I had been approached to build a restaurant product there to then lease to a restaurant group, which I did. And so I did that in, 2011, 2012, right in there. And then that restaurant business didn't make it, and I had to go through the process of taking the real estate back. And then, you have two choices, right? I could either try to find somebody else to rent it to that would go broke, or I could try to make a horse race out of it ourselves, and that's what we decided to do. And so we brought some folks in, and it worked and worked well.
Good. Then Boot Barn came online.
Boot Barn came online when I had the property to the north there of where the restaurant was. Kylan and I were out in California. She wanted to go on the wine train. And so we took the wine train from Napa up through the wineries. And at the end of the day, Peter Mondavi has a winery at the very end of that wine train. He's got a little teeny tiny amphitheater on his property, actually almost in the front yard. And so the night we were there, they had a bunch of classic rock guys there, and we sat out there for the show. And I told Kylan when we got back on the train, when we get home, I'm going to take that land right next to our restaurant, and I'm going to build a music hall. And so when we got home, I did. And about halfway through the process of building the music hall, we were approached by Boot Barn. Boot Barn was just putting in a store about 100 yards the north of us.
That's right.
And so they approached it and said, would you ever consider selling the naming rights? And so that's what I did. I sold the naming rights, basically paid my operating expenses, and was a good deal for us. And that ran its course. And then today, as you know, it's the Phil Long Music Hall.
That's right.
And we built a great relationship with Phil Long. Sort of came out of the relationship that we built with Ford when we sold the naming rights to the Ford Amphitheater.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we're going to get into a deeper dive here with JW Roth, Chairman, Founder, and CEO of Venu. And we're going to have some fun unpacking the business model that's it's been quite a ride, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But this is one of the first and only company to originate out of El Paso County that rang in the New York Stock Exchange. They are now a publicly traded company, ladies and gentlemen. This is a success story, the likes of few others. So stick around. We're going to get to know some of the bumps and bruises that we took along the way, as well, to get this amphitheater here and how we have literally changed the landscape of music and the fan experience forever. Back in a moment with JW Roth.
My experience with Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group has been top-notch. The whole orthopedic group, they've worked very well together. Even when I've gone through PT or needed to get my collar prosthetic, everybody's been just right on top of it. It's all centralized and the communications have been awesome. Even though I had my nervousness about going into surgery, I was still very confident. I knew I was going to be okay. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group is definitely getting me back to my life and the things that I want to do.
All right, welcome back here to the second quarter of Business Digest Weekly. I'm your host, Dirk Hobbs. Again, a shout out to our good friends over at the Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group. They help underwrite this program and get us in front of great community leaders like the one across the board from me, JW Roth. Glad you're here, sir.
Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, that's good to hear from you. And we're getting a front row seat into all things Ford Amphitheater and now Venu. This is the first and only company to come out of Colorado Springs, El Paso County, that is now publicly listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Congratulations on that achievement.
It's fun to do.
And that success. We'll get into kind of how that day was a little bit downstream, but sure. I know the finance minds on the air here with us are obviously eager to understand how you guys really started to put this thing together.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, our entire model and our entire business is built on public-private partnerships, right? So every municipality in the United States is hunting economic impact for their community. Mm-hmm. And so they're always looking for tides that rise all of the boats versus just tides that rise a single boat. So amphitheaters, much like stadiums or baseball teams or anything else, entertainment in a lot of ways, is a tide that rises all of the boats. So we took the idea sort of took a page out of the playbook of George Steinbrenner and Jerry Jones and some other folks that have been very successful in building public-private partnerships, and moved into the entertainment space. These things don't pencil. Whether you're building a big baseball stadium or you're building a football stadium or you're building a big $300 million amphitheater, they don't pencil. So you have to be able to use financing, and you have to use sort of public partnerships to make these things work.
Got it.
And so about 35 to 40% of all of our financing comes from the municipalities that we work with the exception of Colorado Springs. I built Colorado Springs with my own capital and with suite owners' capital as a proof of concept. But every place else that we go, 35 to 40% of our financing comes from the municipality. Broken Arrow, McKinney in Dallas, Texas, El Paso, Yukon in Oklahoma City. All of those municipalities put up the land, they put up tax incentives, and in many cases they put up cash. But at the end of the day, it equals about 40% of all our financing.
You're not there yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
And then you're still 60% short. And so we created a model and a structure much like a condominium building. So when you look at one of our amphitheaters,
Interesting,
picture that amphitheater built on the structure of a condominium building, where our company, Venu, owns the condominium building. Then we go out and we pre-sell condominiums. In our particular case, those are fire pit suites. So the amphitheater is the condominium building, fire pit suites are the condominiums. So we use fractional ownership of the amphitheater to then provide financing for the other 40% or so of the project. And then when we're all said and done, we take the land that's underneath the amphitheater and we do a sale leaseback. And so it allows for us to accelerate the rollout of these amphitheaters. The biggest hurdle that we sort of had in the very beginning was, will municipalities view us as a tide that rises all the boats, right? So the risks to our business was, will municipalities put up that kind of money? Will they do that? And I think today, we're approaching $1 billion, $1 billion in construction that we have going on throughout the United States today.
Pretty substantial.
And I think it's a testament to how municipalities view our product and what that product has been able to do in terms of economic impact in those communities.
Because the fan experience is really part of what's driving this, right?
No question about it. I mean, if you look back at amphitheaters, stadiums, or baseball parks, the fan demand has completely changed over the last 50 years. The fan is demanding today. That fan demands ride share. That fan demands elevated food and beverage. Premium seating is the most sought after seat, whether in a football stadium, baseball park, or an amphitheater. So the fan is driving that. The average amphitheater in the United States is 41 years old. So the average amphitheater were built back before rideshare, before elevated food and beverage. Some of the greatest amphitheaters in the United States, in fact, the number one and most legendary amphitheater in the world is right here in Colorado. It's Red Rocks. But think about it. When you pull up there, it's kind of a chubby guy like me. I got to walk up that hill, clear to the top of that thing. It's a workout.
Yeah.
And then you get there, and to get a beer, now I got to I got to either walk way down there or way up there.
Yep.
By the time I get back to my seat, now I got to go to the bathroom. So now I got to figure out, I got to go all the way down there. Or go to, at the end of the day, it's not the most convenient place in the world to watch a show.
Right.
So the fan today wants that to be easy. My wife doesn't want to walk through a scary parking lot. She doesn't want to, eat off of a sticky table. All of those kinds of things that, as a music fan, I would go to places to watch live music where you could lose a tooth. You know what I mean? It's because that's where great live music is at. But today, that fan doesn't want that. That fan is more demanding. And so what we're building is sort of in line with what Jerry built with the Cowboys and Steinbrenner built for the Yankees, and sort of what you're seeing happening across the spectrum of entertainment and sports, and chasing that premium seat.
So how does a guy in agriculture get to this point? I mean, you kind of downplay, how you think, and it's clear what you're doing. I mean, but how did you get this education, JW? Was it School of Hard Knocks? Is it?
Yeah,
how does that work?
1981, I got a GED and started my business. That's how it started. And I've loved business and I've loved learning business,
Yep.
but I did not grow up in a family where there was business. And so I had to learn it that way. So I credit most of the success that I've had from great mentors, guys that I've just happened to work for.
That's great.
That were super smart.
Yep.
They did a great job. I can credit it back to guys like Roger Hurst and Greg Pusey and partnering with guys like Dave Levine and just people that are really, really savvy, great structuring guys. At the end of the day, building business is about financing, right? It's about determination. And then it's about risk taking. There's those things all play into it. And I've been able to learn from really, really good people
Yep.
As it relates to that. And then 20 years ago, I started stepping out on my own
Yeah.
after working for those kinds of great people. And that led to where Roth is today. That led to the real estate that we've been able to put together. And then ultimately, I got to the point where I could go chase my passion, right? So I had a great son that could run our businesses. He's a great partner. Gave me the opportunity to step away and go build Venu and chase a passion, but chase that passion with 35 years of experience.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
and you're in a little different spot, right? When you go do these kinds of things. And financially, I'm in a different place today than I was 40 years ago, and
Yep.
that kind of stuff. So I'm in a spot I can go do this.
How would you describe yourself? Are you a serial entrepreneur? I mean, what kind of labels would you put on yourself?
I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I'm a passionate guy. I love challenges. There is a part of me that has always been a risk taker, but my risk tolerance has come down over the years. The older I've gotten, the less tolerance for risk I have. There's a lot of reasons for that, right? When you're first starting out, risk is something that you don't have any choice about. It's not a choice. You sit at the kitchen table and you say, Kylan Roth, who's my wife, and hon, this is what I've got to go do. And we have got to take this risk. And so you walk around to a degree with a pair of dice in your hand, and you try to be as calculated as you can, but risk is a big piece of starting any business. And I can tell you from failures that there's a lot of times that risk doesn't play out, and you're right back at the table, but this time in a hole. And so that's just part of it. Today, my risk tolerance is not as high.
Right.
The older you get, the closer you get to sort of being done. You can't take those kinds of risks. But also, your calculation of business changes too. In the beginning, you don't have a lot to. There's not a lot of experience there. So you're sort of feeling your way as you go. And that sort of never goes away, but it's less so the longer you've built businesses, because you're used to what things feel like, and you've crossed this creek enough times that you have a sort of good idea where those stepping stones are.
Are you journaling? Doing anything like that?
I do a little bit, but other people have done it for me.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because I would not be good at that. But there have been some folks that have, and we'll see where that ultimately leads.
It'd be fun to look back and read some of that, I would imagine.
Yeah. I hope they make up stuff.
Well, it's a brilliant evolution. I mean, you really do. And I get this too, because I'm an entrepreneur in a different way, and you do have a higher risk tolerance when you're younger, and it really does land on your plate more so than calculated risk. Yep. But and your threshold for pain goes down as you get older. But clearly, as you said in the beginning of the interview, these types of projects don't pencil out.
They don't.
Okay. So you've got to get really creative. And when we come back, there was a third bucket that you wanted to talk about. So we got two under the hood, the private-public funding. The second one
is sort of public-private partnerships is number one, being able to pre-sell the condominiums or the fire pit suites, and then the sale, lease back of the land underneath it. But what really drives this whole model is being able to finance that middle one, provide financing for your buyers. Changes everything. It's a car dealership, for example, that doesn't offer financing. They're not going to sell a lot of cars.
That's right.
Car dealerships that offer financing sell 10 times more cars.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to come back and unpack that third piece of this puzzle, and then how it really went here in Colorado Springs. I know you beta tested this one over in Gainesville, Georgia, now then Colorado Springs, and now you're well on your way to several other cities around the nation. Yep. We're hanging out with JW Roth, chairman, founder, and CEO of Venu here in Colorado Springs and other places around the country. We're back in a moment. All right, second half, Business Digest Weekly. I'm your host, Dirk Hobbs. Welcome back. We're having a great conversation with JW Roth, native Coloradan, also entrepreneur supreme. Ladies and gentlemen, there is something extraordinary happened in Colorado Springs over the last 10 years, and I would say even the last 7 years, more precisely. This community has grown into kind of its own skin, and it's becoming more and more of a destination, not only to just visit, but to live, work, and play. And part of the retention strategy for any economic development mind is, do you have the infrastructure components that help younger folks, younger families want to plant their flag here and stay? A hefty, thriving arts community and entertainment sector, restaurant scene, and attractions, that's all part and parcel. Well, in large part, we didn't have that. Obviously, the Broadmoor World Arena has been here, and then the Ent Center kind of evolved, but we didn't have a place that would attract international talent on a regular basis. That changed in 2024 when the Ford Amphitheater opened officially. And that's to the credit of JW Roth and his team over at Venu. JW, glad you're with us, my friend.
Thanks again for having me.
Really appreciate you. In the second quarter, we started talking about the financial apparatus that makes this kind of program work, because we both agreed that this thing doesn't pencil out if you just draw it up in the old business mindset.
No.
Okay, build it and they'll come and blah, blah, blah.
No.
Okay?
No.
No fly zones, right?
No. Stadiums, baseball parks, any of the new sort of venues, sports-related or entertainment-related, they'll never pencil.
That's right. So you've got to do something very creative, and you guys figured out a way to do private-public funding.
Yep.
And then this condominium concept that you talk about, I hadn't heard you talk about that more specifically before today.
Yep.
Now there's a third component.
Yep.
And what is that?
So part of the structure when we decided to build this was to build this on free and clear ground. So municipalities, every municipality we will work with, contribute the real estate to this project. So that real estate sits down underneath these amphitheaters, and we own that real estate.
Got it. We
then create entities that you would use then, like you would a condominium building, to build the amphitheater. Then you sell fractional ownership in that, and it's about 40% of your entire financing. Then when you're all said and done, the idea is then to take the real estate that sits underneath the amphitheater and do a sale leaseback. Two things happen when you do that. First thing that happens is pays the rest of the expenses to build the venue. The second thing that happens is it creates a development profit. So you have two profit centers when you build businesses like this. You have operational profit, then you have development profit. And so we have a development company that creates development profit by building these amphitheaters. Then you have an operational partners, whether it's AEG or Live Nation, whoever it is, that is sort of your tenant. And they create an operational profit. So that's the way we decided to build them, and it's worked really well.
So when you first went to market with this, how was the market reception here in Colorado Springs?
Well, it was sort of twofold. So when I couldn't do a public-private partnership here because they didn't have a model. Yeah, so I ended up having to finance that piece of it myself. So I bought the ground, and our company put all of the money in to do that piece. Then I took the fractional ownership idea and I went out with 92 fire pit suites, and in 14 weeks we sold them all for cash, no financing. Yeah. So, it was an amazing, it was a big exclamation point behind what we were doing, right? It was a validation that fractional ownership would work.
And the timing was right.
And the timing was perfect. The timing was perfect. And so we started down that path. And once that happened, we hired Ryan and Company. Ryan and Company is the #1 public-private partnership firm in the world, based out of Dallas, Texas, and turned them loose because we knew that concept was going to work. And so then we hired Younger and Associates. They came in, did the economic impact studies. And so, we had 2 exclamation points that were super important for us to know that it was going to work going forward. Then we started down the process with planning here in Colorado Springs, working through what that was going to look like, finalized our partnership with Anschutz, and put the AEG piece in place, which was super important, and then access and so on and so forth. I mean, there's a variety of players here. It's just not us. There's a lot of people have to play their part. Then we went in front of City Council and presented our plan and negotiated what that was going to look like and how it was going to work. And then we opened the doors in August of 2024 to sold out season.
That's right.
And we've been rocking and rolling ever since.
Amen, brother. And you're about to tee it up again this spring.
We're selling tickets as we speak.
Well, very good. So this concept, probably 5 years ago, probably wouldn't have worked.
No.
Just the timing wouldn't have been right. People weren't in that headspace.
No.
And the economy probably wasn't in your favor, but the timing was impeccable.
Yeah.
You got the city on board. You started development. You opened this thing. When did you and your executive suite start to say, we got some runway here?
When the phone started ringing. Okay. So there's 3 things that happened that told me we were going to be, a company that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And that all happened when 3 things happened. First is I used to chase municipalities, trying to convince them to put an amphitheater in, convince them that this was going to be a tide that was going to rise all of the boats, convince them that the economic impact was going to be billions of dollars to their economy. Most of the time they hung up on me. So difficult to do.
Yeah.
But when the Ford Amphitheater happened and mayors and city council and all sorts of economic development people from around the United States sat and watched a show, and then they went and talked to businesses in the area, and they did. They spent tons and tons of time doing that. All of a sudden, the phone started ringing the other way.
Interesting.
And so today, we have more municipalities than we could ever build in. So there's number 1. Number 2, I had to prove that the fractional ownership was viable.
Right.
That there really was $50 to $100 million per market in fractional ownership. So when it happened in Colorado Springs, it sort of told me it was going to work. Then we took it to other markets, and we've sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of this. And all of a sudden, you got an exclamation point there, and it worked. Then the third piece is content, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to build relationships with content, whether it's CAA, whether it's Live Nation, whether it's Anschutz, whoever it is, to program your venue. And so when that happened, then you sort of got all 3 of them lined up, and away you go.
So you start in a tier 2 city, which has a finite group of people who can write big checks.
That's right.
Right? But you prove the concept.
That's right.
That had to be a huge feather in your cap.
It was. It was an exclamation point, right?
Yeah.
You knew that it could be done. Then it was a matter of putting the route together and then making sure that that route landed in communities where the demographic could do exactly what you just said, number 1. And number 2, that the leadership of that community was favorable to what you were doing. Every city, there's a tale of 2 cities, right? Whether it's Colorado Springs or someplace else, there's always the tale of 2 cities.
Yep.
There's the city that likes being who they are. In fact, they wish they could go backwards in time. The city that is stagnant, the city that doesn't want to grow, the city is sort of the city that, most of the people on the block have a sign that says "Stay off my grass." There's that city. Then there's the city that is vibrant, and they seek vibrancy, and they seek economic development, and they want businesses to move to their city. They want to keep their kids home. They want their grandkids to stay in the community. There's that city. And so I'm always hunting that city, right?
Got it. That
city is Broken Arrow. That city is McKinney. The mayor of McKinney flew up here this weekend, his wife and his daughter, and we went to Flying Horse and had dinner with Kylan, and I heard him talk that way. The reason that he wanted us to come is because of the vibrancy it's bringing to McKinney, Texas. The same in El Paso, Texas. So you're seeking a bunch of things. You're seeking routing. You're seeking the demographic that can support the fractional ownership. And then at the end of the day, no matter what you do, if you don't have a progressive sort of out-of-the-box thinking leadership of those municipalities, you might as well forget it. So, if you had a community that's just full of these goofy Dave Donaldsons, you'd never get anything done, right? So, at the end of the day, you're seeking municipalities that are forward-leaning.
Well, and you had that with Southers,
no question,
and now with Yemi, and
no question,
and you had a good city council prior to the one that's in existence right now.
Well, and then you got people that support the venue, right? So
that's correct.
I mean, I had to have people that would spend millions of dollars buying tickets.
Yeah.
And so, I hear all the time people go, well, they don't like it in Colorado Springs. This little group up in the north, they say that all the time. And I think to myself, well, if that's true, then why do hundreds of thousands of dollars pour in for tickets from people that live here? And the other thing that I find interesting is somebody said the other day, I forget where I was. I was on an interview. I think it was with that guy on public radio. And he said, people in northern Colorado Springs don't like this. And I thought to myself, well, $30 million in fire pit sales were done in northern Colorado Springs.
Tells me a different story. Yeah.
So it tells me a different story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I've always made the argument, JW, that I've never seen a developer like this be willing to come to the table and sit in front of his detractors and try to work things out.
Totally.
If this was a developer from any other part of the country, they wouldn't have had those open houses. They wouldn't have had those town halls and taken the beating that you and your C-suite took.
Yeah.
And
hey, listen, we have to live here, right?
You got to live here.
I live here.
You want to be a good neighbor.
I'm not somebody that moved here and decided to build this. I grew up here. My family's been here before most of the people that have complained ever heard of Colorado.
True.
So at the end of the day, I'm going to be a good neighbor. And I know I get in trouble every time I say that. But the fact of the matter is, that's what we're going to be.
Yeah.
And will everybody always view us as a good neighbor? Probably not. There's some people that are going to be sort of anti us, like they are anti everything, right? Mm-hmm. And so I look at this and I think, okay, we can do this and we can do that and we can do this and we can make it better for everyone. But there's some things that we just can't do, like tear the thing down and move away, which is the only thing you can do to make some people happy.
Some people happy, and it's just not going to happen, folks. Well, this is the only first company here in El Paso County that has originated, that has gone public. They are on the New York Stock Exchange. Their symbol number is VENU. Venu. And it's really impressive to see a Colorado Springs company bring in the New York Stock Exchange. You guys look fabulous up there, by the way, ringing that bell in. But when we come back, we're going to get into the numbers, how it's going so far, not only here in Colorado Springs and in Southern Colorado, but also some of those other venues that he mentioned a moment ago. Back with JW Roth in just a moment.
My experience with Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group has been top-notch. The whole orthopedic group, they've worked very well together. Even when I've gone through PT or needed to get my collar prosthetic, everybody's been just right on top of it. It's all centralized and the communications have been awesome. Even though I had my nervousness about going into surgery, I was still very confident. I knew I was going to be okay. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group is definitely getting me back to my life and the things that I want to do.
All right, we're back here, fourth and final quarter Business Digest Weekly here on a Friday afternoon here in Southern Colorado. Blenders should be on the kitchen counter, ready to fire up in about 45 minutes here. It is a beautiful afternoon here in Southern Colorado, and our music season is about to tee up here. And the Ford Amphitheater is about to turn those lights back on, turn the music back on. I'm hanging out with JW Roth, Chairman, Founder, and CEO of Venu. Formerly Notes Live, now a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. This is the company, what do you call it? The company that rocks?
It's the stock that rocks.
Stock that rocks. There you go. Great headliner, by the way. All right, so let's do the dollars and cents here. How is this thing going from a big, a macro economy standpoint, JW?
Yeah. So from a development standpoint, it's going very, very well. It's expensive to build these. And so it's a process that you go through. And sort of the bigger capital expenses are up front in architecture and entitlement and in all the processes of developing a new amp. And so we've got that going on in multiple markets across the United States right now. We'll build 5 to 10 of these, finish them up over the next 36 months. And then we'll be on to the next 5 to 10 of them. So, in some ways, we've sort of, and you never turn anything into a cookie cutter, right? Mm-hmm. But you do build models. And the Ford Amphitheater here was a model that you built as you built it. And so, like any proof of concept, it takes some time and it takes some jiggering and it takes, it takes just a little bit of a willingness to be super flexible as you build it. So, but once we got this done, it became a model that we use everywhere. In terms of ticketing and operations, we're not in that business. We didn't plan to be in that business. So, we de-risked this early on. Again, goes back to the standpoint I said early is that, I don't have the risk tolerance that I used to have. And so when I built this, I specifically went out from day one and said, I'm not going to operate them. I'm going to partner with great operators, whether that's AEG, Live Nation, whoever it happens to be. And that's how our amps are operated, and they've done very, very well. I got to tell you, the Anschutz Group and everybody at AEG, they're pros.
They
right?
are pros, yeah.
They rolled in here and they programmed this. They built access systems and platforms for our ticketing. And it's just been it's run as smooth as you could imagine. Now, you give up a big piece of your margin to do that, but you also sleep better at night knowing that the pilot that's flying your airplane is super experienced.
Yeah, you don't have those logistical nightmares on your hands.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly right.
So talk about the big numbers. You got $77.7 million in sales in fire pit suites in 2024.
Yeah, and
that's a good day's work.
Yeah, and we'll more than double that this year.
Okay.
So this year we'll hit $250 million or so in fractional ownership sales and income fund side, and then on the operations side, our revenue generation couldn't be any stronger. Mm-hmm. You always have various components of your revenue, right? You have tickets, ticketing fees, food and beverage, sponsorship, all of that kind of thing. And so we're really focused on the pieces that we control. Naming rights is number one. The Ford Motor Company, when we did the Ford deal, produced the largest naming rights deal in outdoor amphitheater history. Hmm. And so we're very focused on that piece of our business. I think we'll triple that when we hit some of our bigger markets like McKinney. But there's where our focus is right now. And I think, from a revenue standpoint, this will be our first profitable year. It's taken 5 years or so to get here. But think about it. You spend hundreds of millions of dollars building the plane. Now the thing's off the ground and it'll start doing what it was built to do.
Well, and you got some pretty exciting partnerships out there. Troy Aikman came on board in Texas.
Yeah.
How's that look?
Yeah, it's been great. Troy's been a great partner. The relationship started with us making an investment in 8. So we're shareholders in 8. We just believe he's built a really nice business. It fits sort of the model of everything that we've done, whether it's Whole30 over at Roth or it's the premium style that we're building at Venu. 8 is built to be better for you, right? So it's a better for you competitor in its space, and it's crushing it. And he's doing a really, really good job. If you know Troy or know anything about him, you know that everything about him is better for you. Yeah. He's a health nut. He's an athlete from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head, and he's a really good guy. He's a fierce competitor. Mm-hmm. I love that part of him in the business. And we partnered on the Aikman clubs, and he and I are building them in every single venue that we're building across the country now.
Is that right?
And it's great to have a competitor like that to work with.
Surely that raises the valuation and prospects downstream, right?
No question. And it's just been a fun partnership and a great partnership. Listen, all of them have been. Budweiser has been a great partner at the local level. Ford Motor Company,
That's right.
Kaiser Permanente, the banks, everybody that's come on board with us.
Great partners. Talk about your expansion plans. So you've got Broken Arrow on the books.
So we're under construction in Broken Arrow right now. It's a beautiful facility. All of the facilities we build now are multi-seasonal. Colorado Springs is the first and only venue that I'll ever build that doesn't have a roof on it.
Copy.
We sit at the base of America's mountain, right? So we're not going to put a roof on it. We sit across the street from the United States Air Force Academy. We're not going to put a roof on it. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's going to operate seasonally. Everything else that we're building is multi-seasonal. They'll operate year-round. They have wind walls built in. They have roofs built in. They have infrared systems. Again, I stole it from the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. They heat the stadium to heat the venue. They have in-floor heating. So they're built multi-seasonally, and that'll do a lot to your sort of overall valuation of these. And again, to the economic impact of the communities. So instead of having 30 shows all in the summertime, you'll run 70 or 80 shows year round. And it makes a big economic impact to the community where you build them.
Well, and you look at the northern side of El Paso County and you see nothing but build out. I mean, you've got single family, multifamily, restaurants, expansion, and of course the Polaris Hotel across the street now.
Right. Listen, there's vibrancy happening. There's vibrancy happening in northern Colorado Springs. It's driving Dave Donaldson nuts. I mean, he's completely losing his mind over the fact that people are having fun up there.
Well, we are having fun up there. We kind of appreciate that.
Yeah, dang right.
So multi-season configuration is kind of what you just alluded to. So here, it's always going to be kind of seasonal?
It'll always be seasonal.
Okay.
Here. Yep. You'll run 35 or so, maybe 40 shows. Seasonally. Think of the sweet spot of our season, sort of Memorial to Labor Day. Maybe a little scooch in front of that, maybe a little scooch behind that. But
sure.
At the end of the day, there's your sweet spot.
Yep. And in the other markets, you're going 12 months.
12 months, yep.
Copy that. Yep. All right. So talk to us a little bit about the Venue Income Fund and, how does that work and how people can get involved?
So we were approached by an investment bank that had the idea of taking our fractional ownership from a variety of our locations and pooling them into a fund and then selling them as an income source to investors. And so Green Vista Capital manages that fund. It's a completely managed fund. When you buy into that fund, you're basically buying into fractional ownership in all of our, not all of our venues, but specific venues.
Got it.
And that's the way it works. Okay. It's got a 6% guarantee on it. It's fully collateralized and it's got a 15% preferred rate.
Is that available up in the Springs or
absolutely.
Elsewhere? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. All right, last thing, Arts and Culture Foundation. What's that all about?
It's about giving back, right? So
good corporate citizen.
We're trying to be good citizens, and we're trying to be the people that we sort of admire, right? Mm-hmm. And we've watched how others have given back. Anschutz is a perfect model. He's a perfect mentor for this.
Very good.
And so we built it to provide scholarships for kids going to school out here at UCCS studying arts and culture. We built this for artists and folks that are trying to build out their businesses in this space. We have been very, very blessed. And so having the capital that we can set aside from our business to do this has been important. And
That's a big deal.
We had a great year. We started off with the contributions that we made at the first of this year, and we're glad we could be a part.
Congratulations on that. How are the musicians responding to the venues?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, you watch what they say. When we first did this, even Anschutz was nervous about it. Everybody was nervous about what is going to happen when an artist steps out on a stage and they're used to seeing pitch black and they're just used to seeing cameras lit up and phones and sort of that response. What are they going to think when they step out on the stage and there's fire going everywhere and there's fire pits and there's all of this craziness that we built into these, creating this premium experience? So we didn't know, but it's been incredible. When you have Ryan Tedder walk out on the stage and he goes, "Holy cow, I feel like I'm in Dubai."
Nice.
This place is incredible. Steve Miller steps out on stage and goes, "Wow, this is unbelievable."
That's cool.
Alison Krauss says, "This is unbelievable." Foreigner stops the show and goes, "What the heck? I mean, how does this work?"
That's cool.
It's just super cool.
Yeah.
So it has been It has been very, very well received. The management companies from CAA down, William Morris, they have all come back and just been excited about it. You know, when the industry steps up, then you sort of know that you're accepted. Polestar, which is the Bible of our industry, just nominated us for Venue of the Year worldwide. So Colorado Springs is going to go on the map in a lot of ways. Billboard's coming out with. I got to be a little careful when I say it. Anyway, it is. We're starting to sort of be, as a good Lutheran would say, blessed by the industry.
Very good. Well, it's been exciting to watch. You've got about $1 billion over the next decade pouring in here. That's the economic impact.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's
$1 billion coming into Colorado Springs over the next 120 months.
That is impressive. And so when you talk about all boats rising on a high tide,
Yep.
I don't see how you can argue with that.
Yep.
Closing thought on your time up in New York and ringing that bell, brother.
Oh, it's fun. You know, it's a bucket list thing, right? I mean, as a business guy, you grow up your whole life, and much like a baseball player says to himself, someday I want to be in the World Series. Someday I want to go to the Super Bowl as a football player, whatever it is. In business, the idea of standing up on the platform and ringing the bell on the New York Stock Exchange as a newly listed company, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I bet.
God's been good.
Did you go see the bull?
I did.
Did you?
I was on the tail end, but
Yeah, I was going to say there's a ritual.
There is a ritual, and I did it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Not for radio consumption, but congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
JW.
God's been good.
I think you have made this community extremely proud. I know there's folks out there that are frustrated, but look, growing pains are always a part of evolution.
Yep.
And Colorado Springs is evolving. This is becoming a global destination for musicians, for music lovers, and for other opportunities to come into this community to see that we are a forward-thinking, economic development-minded company and community in general.
Vote for vibrancy.
Yep.
Vibrancy, I can't ever think of a situation in which vibrancy brings anything but prosperity.
Indeed. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. JW Roth's been hanging out with us. If you want to see and hear this, go to YouTube or online at Apple, Spotify, or iHeartRadio podcast. Look up Business Digest Radio. Till next week, ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend. Take care.
You've been tuned in to Business Digest Weekly with Dirk Hobbs. If you'd like to be considered for a spot on our show, email us at info@coloradomediagroup.com.